Hey everybody, today I'm going to go through trying to rebuild, well, I've already rebuilt this winch, but there's a part inside that I've got to fix. This isn't supposed to spin because there's some screws in there that broke. I'm going to see if I can get those screws out, get them replaced. But I'm going to take the winch apart and kind of go through how I rebuilt it. The part that you won't be able to see is actually cleaning all the bearings and gears and different things like that, but I'll pull it apart so you can at least see what the internals look like, and I'll walk you through how I rebuilt it. So I'm going to start working on this here. First thing I do, take a couple Allen heads that are of decent size. I'll show you this real quick. You got to spin this here to unlock it, so I'll show you how I do that. Two Allen wrenches and a file. Usually they're a little snugger than that, but giving you the test run on it. So you just spin that off. You can see it's a Barlow 27. Oh, you want to hand me that towel? So I got a place. There we are. Okay, so you pop this off carefully. Now it actually comes apart in a couple of pieces. See, these are the bolts that broke. They actually sheared off down inside here. So I'm going to try and use an easy out and get those out. But I'll pull this winch apart now, show you that. Okay, first thing you want to do when you go to lift this thing up is make sure that nothing falls overboard. So come up with it slowly and kind of keep a hand down here on the back side in case something does fall. And flip her upside down. All right, so there's the inside. These are all the different bearings. There's 3 sets here. Slide those up. See, there's 1, 2, 3. So those just stack on top of this shaft here. Okay, now what I'm going to show you is on the base, you've got these Allen heads right here, and there's one over here. So I'll pop those Allen heads off. That'll pull this whole shaft and gear mechanism off, and I'll show you that when we get it pulled off. I won't make you suffer through the actual spinning of the Allen head wrench. Okay, we've got all the Allen heads out now, so we'll pop this up, bring it inside quickly. Okay, so here are all your gears on the inside, and that clicking sound is the nice clicking sound you want. So that's my Allen heads I got to pop off here. One up here, pull this pin out. That'll allow this whole bottom mechanism to come apart. Okay, now that we've got everything disassembled from the side of the boat, we can set some of the non-important stuff for this particular part of the project out of the way. These things we won't be dealing with. Okay. So, spin this over here. Oh, I forgot. This will just slide right out. Okay, so now we're into the meat and potatoes of the actual gears. You want to take note of how you pulled these gears apart so you can put them back together without a whole bunch of problems. Okay, so this gear splits in two. These are where your pawls are located. These are your pawls here. Okay, they go inside. Easiest way to put them in, clip one side, give her a spin, in they go. Okay, these are more bearings. Just like the big ones I showed you here, this is another set of two. Okay, they go around that pin right there. Then your pawls in gear go around them and sit like so. So when this is spinning, you can hear the pawls in there clicking the way they're supposed to. So you've got this one, that whole pin come out, and that's fine because I'm not going to pull that all apart and grease it, but that pin sits in here. These bearings go over it, and inside are your pawls. So your pawls have little springs on them. The easiest way is kind of give it a bit of a squeeze, lift it up slowly until your finger catches the spring, or in that case it just shot out. So there's the spring right there. Okay, so give her a, set her down in, give her a bit of a squeeze. Let's pull this one out. Okay. So I was putting that one in backwards. Get it started. Give her a squeeze. And in she goes. Squeeze one side, start spinning it around it, and in they go. Same thing on this one here. there's pawls in there as well. You don't want that excess grease to build up inside where your pawls are at. It can start to make your pawls stick and like peanut butter to the roof of your mouth. So the pawls take a light, like a 3-in-1 oil, and then everything else takes a grease. These were in really rough shape when I did the rebuild on them, so I over greased everything a bit to make sure that it had plenty of lubrication. So there's more bearings down inside. You just got to be really careful where you're pulling when you're pulling apart. Here's another set of bearings here. They're just all over. So as you're disassembling, the easiest thing I did was I just took pictures of it when I first disassembled it to make sure that when I put it back together, it looked like the pictures. To clean all this stuff, I just used a little garden bucket you pick up at Walmart and some diesel fuel, and that cleaned her right up. And a little toothbrush, some diesel fuel in a bucket, keep it all in, and just scrubbed it with a toothbrush. Got all the old corrosive garbage off there. Got it all cleaned up, oiled it, and put it back together. I'll grab the oil or the grease and show you what greases I used. Okay, on this one here, this is the base, held everything together. Pull this cotter pin out. It'll allow this pin to come out this way. You can pull this gear out and then grease it up. There's no pawls or anything in that. There's a set of bearings inside. So like I said, pull the cotter pin, pull the pin, you'll pull the gear out, get the gear cleaned up, put back together, grease the bearings, and then you're ready to start reassembly. So this obviously will line up here, and that one back in there. And I just use this as a little extra leverage to make sure they're good and tight. I don't even put enough pressure on there to twist this, just enough to know that it's good and tight. Okay, so that's been reassembled. Clean this up, grease it. Like I said, there's the bearing down in here. I think I might have already pulled it out once. That bearing. Slip her back in there. Be careful because those are two pieces. A top ring and a bottom ring on some of them, and they will split in half, and you will have bearings go everywhere. Okay, then this goes back down inside. A little spin to work it in there. And you'll see it pops out right there. Right there. Okay. These slide right back over it. Like I said, a toothbrush, some diesel, some solvent, some sort. Just held it in the palm of my hand and scrubbed it with a toothbrush. Got those good and lubed back up. Now we'll mount it back on the boat. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I couldn't remember. It only lines up one way on this particular winch. If you look at these holes, at this alignment here, that one's lined up, but this one isn't. So it's pretty fail-safe on putting it back together. Once again, be real careful you don't drop something overboard. These I put down pretty darn tight because there's a lot of force that goes on those. And once again, use the crescent for leverage. Okay. Slide the main housing back on. I like that sound. Okay. And then this is the tricky part here. You've got to make sure that you've got this in before you set this down, because you can't get this to lock in. Once this is on, you can't get that on there. So you want it on and lined up, and then the whole thing will set down together. What I do is I line it up so as I'm using the winch, it spools the sheet into the boat. So I would set her about like that. And then as you're cranking on the winch, the sheet comes into the boat. And this is the last piece here. Set it on, start spinning it in. Once it gets to a certain point, back to my 2 Allen heads and my file, and I give her a couple of good twists. It's not coming off by hand. But back to the original project, trying to drill and tap and get these things out of here. I guess one thing, Super Lube synthetic grease. That's what I use to grease all the gears, all the bearings inside. Works really good, and the guys at the marine shop said this is what you use on winches. So this is what I use for dissimilar metals and lube as well. Rust and corrosion protection. When you're putting two dissimilar metals together, they'll tend to try and eat one another, and this lanicate really slows that down. It's really thick stuff, so little goes a long ways. But I just slap it on the threads of the bolts, different things where I've got brass going next to aluminum or stainless steel, give it a good coating and help slow down that corrosion process.